This happened a long time ago, when I was about 4 or 5. I'm 15 now. Looking back at the situation, I really think I should have seen the red flags about this guy. But since I was really young and stupid, I didn't see anything out of the ordinary. I thought he was just a kind guy. I had gone with my mother shopping, a girl's day out, you get the gist. At some point I get lost in the mall. Typical, everyone has a story like that, right? So far, no red flags at all. I remember seeing a guy with a very southeastern accent. I thought he was from India. He was dressed like a junkie, but in my 5-year-old mind I thought he looked fine. So since I was a lost 5-year-old girl who didn't know any better, I walked up to him and asked him for directions, if he had seen my mummy, etc. He ignored my questions, and when he saw me, his eyes lit up. He immediately started showering me with compliments. Some of them were even inappropriate to say to a 5-year-old kid. He gave me a pink and black bracelet and told me how well it looked on me. Of course, I was oblivious to the situation and ignoring all the red flags. So at some point, he offers to take me to his fake private jet and fly me to Jamaica to relax and play with the dolphins. Basically, he made it sound like a child's paradise. All I had to do was get in his car. Of course, since it sounded like a dream come true, I trusted him and almost went in this car with this creep. I kid you not, at the exact moment I was about to leave the mall, some dude with a suit and tie stopped him dead in his tracks and asked him where he was going with a 5-year-old girl. You could easily tell we weren't related. He had a dark skin tone and I was very pale. And add that he was dressed like a junkie. It probably set off an alarm in the fancy guy's head. The guy responded with his raspy southeastern accent. This is my daughter's kid and I'm taking her home. We were clearly not related, and so the fancy guy asked me, where was my mum? I told him she was still in the mall. From that point on, there was some arguing between the two men. I didn't get most of it, but I ended up with the well-dressed man and the junkie cursed him out. We went to the lobby of the mall and found my mum there, telling the worker behind the desk my description. She had clearly picked up by this point that I was gone. It turned out the guy in the suit was a security guard at the mall, and had picked up on how wrong the situation was. When my mum saw me with this guy, she picked me up and hugged me. This story is in fact very old, but I recently got reminded of it because one of my friends told me that they were planning on going to Jamaica for vacation, and the memories just came flooding back. So security guard who noticed how wrong the situation was, thank you. To the creep that almost kidnapped me, let's never cross paths again.
The story happened around 4 years ago. Back then I was 18 and had just graduated high school. I decided to volunteer for a month in a southern Asian country before my university starts, since volunteering was something I always wanted to do. I managed to find a place to volunteer at, and was supposed to live for the first week with family friends. Then I'd start living at my workplace. Thing is, my workplace couldn't house me due to construction, and having another female volunteer coming soon, so I had to find a hostel to stay at. And that's my biggest mistake. I went on the internet and started looking for a hostel. Sure enough, I found one in the center of the city in a relatively safe area. Also, the hostel had many great reviews from foreigners, so I thought it's safe. I visited the hostel and was greeted by Jay. He was the nephew of the owner and was responsible for greeting foreigners and showing them around. Jay was in his mid-20s, average-looking dude, probably around 5'8". After I make the arrangements for my stay there and agree to come the next day, he invites me to go with him on a walk to show me around the neighborhood, which I agree to. During our walk, he tells me about himself. He lived in the UK for a bit, tells me about his family, and asks me if I smoke. Back then I was a cool kid fresh out of high school, so I ecstatically told him yes, since I was trying to get some weed but didn't know how. He told me he can get it for me when I come tomorrow, and he will have some for me. The next day I go to the hostel and he tells me that he couldn't get it, so I have to go with him and his friend George's tuk-tuk to get it. In hindsight, that was a big red flag, but I was a dumb kid who really wanted to smoke, so I said yes. George looked like a cartoon villain. All his face features were sharp and narrow, and a little Von Dyke beard to go with it. basically a 5'6" Jafar from Aladdin. I'll call him George. They all get in the tuk-tuk and drove to the slums of the city to meet the dealer. Anyways, we get the weed and they tell me we are making a stop at George's house and smoking there for a bit. Fine by me. I had no reason to suspect them since they were nice and polite with me. We reach his house, which is still in the slums. It was a small room with a bed and 3 chairs, nothing else, no tables or decor or anything. I sat on a chair, Jay sat on my right, and George sat on the bed rolling out some joints for us. We start smoking and talking. He started asking me about why I'm here, how old I am, and stuff like that. Suddenly it started becoming a bit too personal, asking me what my parents do for a living, how much they make, and the one that really caught my attention. Who are the people you live with, and do they know where you are, and are they going to worry about you if you don't call soon or anything? I was stoned then, but the moment they said that I started sobering up and realizing that I'm in a messed up situation. I told them that I'm supposed to call them in a few hours and that they know which hostel I'm staying at. Suddenly another guy came and just stood at the doorway, completely blocking it. He was my height but much bigger in size than me. I was trapped between them and had nowhere to go. Luckily they couldn't do anything to me yet since I told them I'm supposed to make a phone call to the family friends. Starting to get nervous, I told them that I'm too big and can't even move or smoke, so I kept passing up on my turn to smoke. I just lay there acting as if I'm high off my mind. They started speaking their language, but it was clear to me that they were speaking about me. Jay told them about all the electronics I had and that I paid my full stay in cash. Now George, God bless his soul, thought I wasn't aware of my surroundings, so in perfect English, Jay told me he doesn't speak English. Started mocking me, kept saying nice phone, and asking me if I knew how to swim. I just looked at him and I smiled and told him that it's time to go because I was tired. We walked out and I told them I needed to go to the market really fast and if they needed anything. They kept telling me that they'll get me whatever I wanted themselves, but I insisted that I wanted to go and that they should send one of them with me. They sent the big guy. Now the market was across the street from a bus station, and the buses don't stop at the station. They just slow down and you hop in and hop out, so now was my chance. I waited until I saw a bus approaching, sprinted like my life depended on it, and hopped in. They were screaming at me to come back and started running after the bus. The moment the bus reached the neighborhood of the family friends, I just hopped out and walked around the neighborhood. Until morning came. Morning I went to work and told them that a tuk-tuk tried to kidnap me, so they escorted me to the hostel where I took my belongings and work allowed me to stay with them. When I told my family friends about what happened, they told me it's a common scam here, and that they were planning to steal my belongings and dump me in the river when we left the house. That's why they asked if I knew how to swim and if someone was expecting me. So Jay and George, let's never meet again.
In the fall of 2015, I began college in a very small town in the middle of nowhere. Its population as of 2019 is 55,489. This town was in the middle of the Midwestern state I lived in the middle of the Great Plains. The town was pretty much only existent because of the college. It was a state college, which has about 20,000 students a year. As you can imagine, the college brought in a plethora of faculty business, and really put the town on the map. I personally stuck out like a sore thumb. You can see, even though I lived in the Bible Belt, I had been Wiccan since I was 15. I never identified with Jesus and God when I grew old enough to dissect the Christian faith. A big aspect of my personality is that I'm very accepting. I mention this because it ultimately led to some chaos later. I'm the class clown, mum, friend type. I'm sure you know the type. Goofy and caring, pretty much ride or die. So I was in the middle of nowhere at the beginning of my college career, and I was surrounded by strangers who were just as nervous and awkward as I was. Due to being in the middle of the Bible Belt, my friends really loved my tarot card, medium, future-seeing persona. Quickly, while making new friends, I ran into a few folks who wanted to learn how to read tarot cards. We lived in the same dorm community. They were nice and I loved teaching. So that's how I ended up getting into cahoots with Alex, Davis, April, Sam, Rosie, Katie, and Sky. They were friends from the year prior, so I was sort of folded into the friend group as the newest shiniest object. After mentioning that I read tarot, the group was over the moon. One afternoon in the basement of our dormitory, I had a tarot reading session for the group. It was a lazy fall day, mid-November, surrounded by soda cans, Kit Kats, and our schoolwork. I began to read each and every group member's cards. With reading, you start to peek into a person's soul. Each card gives you a slither of personhood. I quite regularly have had to console people for the truth that lies within the reading. I often have to play the role of the therapist after the cards read people for filth. So it was unsurprising to me when the group sat in shock and curiosity, goosebumps prickling their arms. It was a normal response. Hours flew by. I did general readings, question-based readings, love life readings, you name it. As the time rolled on, more of my talent slipped out. Soon I was reading palms, giving psychic advice, talking about my Wiccan journey. I believe that what you take from the earth, you should give back. It is inherent to my belief system to do everything with love, to never mean any ill will. Alex asked me if I could teach them about my belief systems, then Katie, then Davis. Before I knew it, everyone in the group had asked for an impromptu teaching. Don't get this wrong, I loved teaching, but more so, I craved this positive attention. My childhood was quite awful. I was very abused. I just wanted people who cared about me. These people were some of the first to really seem to care about me, who were really interested in what I had to say. So with rose-colored glasses, I began a fun little info sesh with my brand new friends. I didn't see the warning signs. What started out as little meetings in the study rooms turned into hour-long lectures, where the group hung to every word I said. As we got closer, more of my horrific past was uncovered. I shared tales of my trauma, of all the times I should have died, of the beatings, of how my mum tried to murder me. I thought I had found my tribe. I was really excited and pleased to be around folks. I didn't start to see the warning signs until it was too late. Things went smoothly for a while, a routine of teaching the group, hanging out, having dinner, talking about the normal things like school and what was going on in the dormitory communities. Things felt pretty normal. I really liked it. One of the group members, Davis, was transitioning female to male, and he struggled a lot with his identity. He was raised in a pretty strict household, so his transition wasn't taken very well by his family. He also struggled with BPD, which made people in the group uncomfortable. I think because they didn't understand it. Keep in mind, mental health at the time wasn't really something that people were open about, as it was the Bible Belt. So Davis would occasionally act erratic, start fights, get worked up, cry randomly. I'm sure part of this was due to the transitioning. I can't imagine how emotional and hard it would be to go through that. What really set things off was when Davis started doubting if he should fully transition or not. Davis had already been on testosterone for quite some time, was male presenting, but did not have top surgery yet. One day, right before spring break, Davis had worn a dress, makeup, and heels around campus. At the time, I thought it was strange, but I figured it was Davis's life, so it didn't matter to me. The rest of the group, however, started to obsess over this. It was very out of character, but the group thought there was more to it. When Davis left for class, adorned in his dress and heels, Alex started speculating. There was a long weird history between Alex, Davis, and Sky. One where Davis was sort of relationship-like flirting with both Alex and Sky, creating some animosity. Alex and Sky were best friends, but Davis had sort of wiggled his way into both of their hearts. Alex wasn't one to really discuss their feelings, so they pretended this love triangle didn't affect them, but Alex had become bitter. After Davis had walked out, Sky in tow, Alex began their speculation. What's wrong with him? Why is he acting like that? It's like I hardly know him. Katie, one for gossip, joined in. It is honestly like Davis is a completely different person. I don't know who this is, but I hate him. He's taking advantage of Sky. The rest of the conversation began to snowball. It was a frustrating situation for those who had been in the friend group for a long time. I was pretty much indifferent. I didn't know what was going on, and honestly I thought that people were kind of making a fuss out of nothing. If you're uncomfortable with what's happening, then talk it out. I digress. I had been working on a term paper, not really minding too much about the conversation until April asked me, "Do you think he could be messing around with some bad magic?" I shrugged. Davis had asked about love spells and other stuff that I don't really mess with. He was really into the idea that he could put a spell on someone and make them fall in love with him. I had told him that taking away free will is something you should never mess with. The universe doesn't do kindly to those who harm, obstruct, or take away free will from someone. April had been there when Davis asked. When Alex looked questioningly at her, April spilled the beans. Something in Alex's face contorted, as if you could see their heartbreak turn into pure rage. Alex excused themselves, and that was that. I remember being a little stressed about the situation. I hated conflict back then. I was spending spring break at Rosie's house. Her and Sam lived in the same town. Alex and Katie would be there too. When I agreed to spend the break with them, it was before the drama had started. But by the time we got to spring break, it was too late to change my plans. The whole break was spent listening to the conspiracy grow. The four of them had begun to elaborate on this bad magic idea. Rosie thought maybe Davis was possessed. I told them I didn't think it was likely. I had a feeling things were starting to go awry. Things felt weird. I had never been in the presence of a group of people who just accused another of being possessed. Things were weird. When I shot down the possession idea, they mentioned the time Davis growled the week prior. We were playing a game online when Davis growled as a response. I had jokingly said he sounded like a demon. I still told them that it was nothing, but they wouldn't let up. Realizing I was in trouble, I came up with a quick solution. I told them we could do some protection spells, so if anything was going awry, we would be okay. That seemed to appease them well enough. Luckily, they left the topic alone until we were heading back to campus. "We need to do an exorcism on Davis," Rosie said, a wild look in her eyes. Rosie had dabbled in paganism before she had met me, so she already had a solid set of beliefs and theories. The issue here, however, was that Rosie and Sam thought they could use their paganism as a tool to control those around them. I tried to correct this thought process as it was against my belief system, which they seemed really receptive to, until they threatened me. Davis had sent a text message to Rosie about some drama with Alex and Sky, sending Rosie into a spiral. Before I knew it, the narrative shifted into Davis is possessed by the demon Lilith. I didn't know what to do. I told them that he wasn't. I said it didn't make sense. I was too late. I didn't know. I figured that if I got back to campus, took some time away from them, everyone would calm down. So that's what I did. I tried to do as much damage control as I could on the rest of the ride. But then, when I got back to my dorm, I locked myself away in my room. When asked, I just said I was behind on work from spring break. Things were quiet, and I felt safe. I figured it was temporary insanity or something. I was sat downstairs talking to April a few days after I'd locked myself away. We were just chit-chatting about what she had done over the break, when I saw Rosie and Katie rush past the sitting room. They were frantic. They waved at us when they ran past, but didn't say anything. A bit later, Sky ran in the same direction, crying. When he saw us, he rushed in. Davis said he's a demon and needed to be exorcised. I jumped to my feet and started running towards his dorm. Sam and Alex stood in the hallway, their faces hardened when they saw me, Sky, and April walking up. "You're not allowed in here. Davis is a danger to you," Sam said. He admitted he was possessed. "He's not possessed. Let me in there." We bickered for a while until I said that if they were going to do an exorcism, they needed me there. Nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. Davis was laid on the bed, tied to the bed frame. He was crying. Rosie and Katie were inside, setting things up around the bed. Rosie held a tattered old book in her hand. There was sage burning on a plate. Katie yelled something, but I couldn't focus. I just kept thinking that these people were fucking crazy. All I could see was Davis crying on the bed. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know I was possessed. I didn't know I was gonna hurt you," Davis wailed, shaking. "We're gonna get the demon out. You're gonna be okay." I just kept saying that he wasn't possessed, but nobody was listening to me. That's when I saw the knife. It was bronze in colour with something dark crusted on it. It sat in a bowl from the dining hall, sat in a mix of what looked like salt and what looked like blood. In shock, I looked over to Rosie, spotting a bloody gauze on her arm. It was like my world had stopped. At this point, I had realized that these people were crazy. I didn't think they were killer crazy. I had seen enough scary movies that I could only imagine what was going to happen. I grabbed the knife and cut through the cloth that tied Davis down, grabbed his wrist and bolted out of the room. I called Davis's mum and told her to come get him. We went to my dorm until she got there with me, just trying to talk some sense into him. Davis went home shortly after. Rosie, Katie, Sam and Alex were blowing up my phone. April had come with me when I ran out with Davis. When he had gone home, she started to talk to me about how I needed to be careful. Because if Hillary Clinton were elected president, because I was special, my mother had told me that she had to kill me, or else the government would get me. That I was special. April knew this, and apparently she believed it too. I just nodded, telling her I needed to go to sleep. After she left, I started filing paperwork to transfer schools. I moved 2 hours away, blocking everyone in the group's phone numbers. I couldn't believe everything that had happened, but looking back, I started to see the signs were there all along. The passing, "You're like a witchy Jesus," or blind faith in everything I said. The most memorable moment was when I told them that the sky was actually green. I was just joking around, being a sarcastic asshole, but April and Alex just nodded. When I said I was joking, April defended them, saying, "Well, technically, the sky just reflects the earth, so it is kind of green." Hindsight is 2020. I accidentally started a cult, created a small hellhole, where everyone blindly believed everything I said, and thought I was the modern day Jesus. So, to my former cult members, let's never meet again. Also, please get help.
So I recently heard about this thread and thought I'd share something that has always stuck with my friend and I. I worked at a beauty store in Texas that sold hair, makeup, or nail related. I had a lot of regulars, so the fact that I saw the same person over and over was nothing new, but I did have one hairdresser that always struck up a conversation every time he was coming to stock up. The first couple of times he'd have me follow him around and ask my opinion. He really did stock up, as the saying goes, but that term really became a misnomer after he started talking only about my hair. I naturally have very huge loose curls, and it upset him that I wasn't treating it right. He only even said he was amazing with natural curls, but he never actually gave advice. I was 19 and didn't realize that was a really weird thing to do. Soon the visits were only conversations and constantly asking me to let him do my hair for free, and trying to entice me, so I finally just took him up on the offer. I wasn't as smart as I thought I was, but I at least knew not to go alone nor tell him I was bringing someone. I've never been good at reading situations, so I would slightly switch up on people to see any micro-expressions that hint to an ulterior motive if I don't have a good feeling. He immediately switched the meeting place as we drove there from his salon to his house, and ignoring my stabbing gut feeling, I just kept going. I remember really not wanting to go in once we arrived. When he got to the door, his eyes instantly went to my friend, and as I thought he looked irritated, and I was going to use that as a way to head out, but I didn't even think of a scenario where he would take to her hair as well. I instantly was only trying to find a natural way out as he's greeting us in. He asked us to brush our hair, and I noticed in my peripheral that he was adding something to our drinks when he thought we were focused on getting my brush. My friend was actually texting me on her phone so I could make something up while I reached for the brush. I set the brush down and checked my text when it vibrated. He immediately tried to make us uncomfortable if we didn't take the drinks, but didn't realize he was staring at my hair in a trance-like state. I instantly put my phone to my ear and held up a finger to his face that was closing in, now holding my hair. I started acting panicked, and my friend knew instantly that it meant time to go. I didn't even reply to any question he fired. I just kept up this fake conversation with my mom, asking, "Is Dad okay? Are you okay? I'm leaving right now, just tell me where you are." By the time all of that was uttered, we were out the door, briskly walking down the hall to the elevator, and his door stayed cracked, until the ding of the elevator when he immediately slammed the door so hard we felt the vibrations. I didn't feel safe until we were in the car and driving on highway. We rode in stunned silence until I got to her house to drop her off when she finally asked for a cigarette and to sit down a bit. I don't know what he had planned, whether it was just some actual innocent obsession with hair. and his way was just too awkward and shady, or if there was something more devious planned. But we never talked it about again and stopped going to hairdressers altogether. We share a knowing glance when we hear something that reminds us of that moment when we're together. All I can say is we definitely agreed that day before partying that we did not want him to see him again.